things you haven't heard anything talked about is a proof of market power or dominance. We feel like they're big, but Amazon is still half the size of Walmart. Apple is far and away certainly not the largest operating system, whether on mobile or on computers. Google has competition all over the place, and Facebook right now is facing vigorous competition from TikTok. So you didn't hear a proper definition of market power, one of the core tenets of antitrust law. And what you also didn't hear is a single mention of consumer harm. Now, you did hear Democrats complaining about protecting competitors, but you didn't hear any of them talking about protecting consumers who now enjoy free products and low-cost services and goods.
Well, let me pick up on exactly that point, because if lawmakers crack down on big tech, does that benefit the consumer, do you think, Carl?
Absolutely not. So one of the things that we found is small businesses are reaping incredible benefits from these large technology platforms. Think about the ability to advertise for fractions of a penny or $50. Historically, you had to rely on newspapers, radio, and TV. And most of those ads would just go out to people who just don't care about your product. Small businesses benefit, and if you broke them up, it would be harder for these small businesses to reach the customers they're trying to find. And at the same time, consumers would lose out. There's no way that YouTube could stand on its own without the revenue being generated by Google Ads. Amazon Prime Video wouldn't even be a thing. And it's hard to imagine how you separate many of these other benefits that we enjoy because of the scale of these businesses.
Well, Stacey, address that, because I could see you shaking your head there in part.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we've seen a real collapse in small business. As these tech companies have grown their power, we have lost literally tens of thousands of small and mid-sized businesses across this country. And it's become much harder to start a business. The rate of new businesses forming every year is much lower than it used to be. And a big part of the reason for that is the power that these companies have. We published a report yesterday that found that Amazon is taking a bigger and bigger cut of the sales of third-party sellers on its platform, the independent businesses that really have no choice but to sell on Amazon because it is so dominant. And it's, you know, it's a situation in which they lose either way. Either they give up access to the online market and don't sell there, or they sell on Amazon, and Amazon takes an increasingly big cut of their business. We found that Amazon's fees have grown to 30%. They take $30 of every $100 that a small business earns, and that most small businesses crash and burn on the site, that they are failing. And we're seeing this across the country. These companies have amassed an incredible amount of wealth and power. And that means that, you know, we are seeing more and more inequality, fewer and fewer people able to make a decent living because of that power.
And Stacey, I assume that you agree with just one of the lawmakers we saw questioning Google, who said at one stage you identify competitors and then simply crush them.
That's right. These companies have all engaged in an acquisition spree. They have been buying tons and tons of companies, small companies. So someone comes along with a good idea and they buy it up. I mean, in the case of Amazon, you know, we think of Amazon as being this incredibly inventive company, and maybe it was at one time. But much of its dominance now is really driven by being able to buy up the technologies of other companies. And I think what's particularly concerning from the standpoint of competition and ultimately consumers and the vitality of our economy is that if you come along now and you want to build, you have a new idea, you want to build a business, you want to come up with a new way of doing things, you're going to be crushed in your infancy by these.
Let me bring Carl in then to address exactly that size and scale, and you can simply just blow out of the water your competitors. That's the charge.
That's always been the situation in the history of business in memoriam. A larger business, if it sees an opportunity for a new market share, yeah, it's going to take advantage of that. That's business. And they don't do that to stifle out competition. They do that because there is competition in the market. Now, the insinuation is that these businesses just absolutely have to capitulate to Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google because they're so big. And that's just absurd. If you think about it, Twitter, did it sell off to Facebook or anyone else? No, it competed directly. TikTok, doing the same thing. You have dozens of competitors around the world. And once again, Jet.com was a startup on its own that was acquired by Walmart.com, the largest retailer in the world. No one seemed to bat an eyelash at that acquisition. So what you're seeing here is everyone pouring their angst, their frustration, and their animosity into technology as this boogeyman for all the bad that's going on, when in fact there's a lot more going on, and still we haven't identified a single instance of consumer harm.
I haven't got a great deal of time left, and I want to get through a couple of questions, so brief answers to a couple of the thoughts, because Donald Trump tweeted a little earlier threatening to bring fairness to big tech with executive orders if Congress does not do it. I mean, one way or another, legislation is coming, isn't it?
So what I think about that is you're seeing the real threat of opening the Pandora's box of moving away from the current consumer welfare standard we have for antitrust law and allowing politics to dominate antitrust law. Antitrust law is an objective analysis. If we open it to a subjective standard, then this president or next president can use antitrust as a sledgehammer to beat down any business or publication that they may disagree with.
Stacey.
Antitrust law was designed to ensure competition, to protect the American people from too much concentration of power, both economic power and political power. The idea that antitrust was only supposed to be about maximizing efficiency or consumer welfare is really a myth. It's been that way for a number of decades, and that's how we've allowed this incredible concentration of power. But these laws were originally designed to protect us in all the ways that we interact in the marketplace, including our ability to be entrepreneurs, our ability to earn a living and get a fair wage, our ability to live in thriving communities, to have a thriving democracy. That's what our laws are. They're really about a kind of check and balance. Just like we have in government, we also have a check and balance on private power. These companies have too much of it, and this is really about who's in charge of our country going forward.
All right, 20 seconds each to finish, because the chair said in his opening statement after the COVID-19 crisis, the big four will be even more powerful than before this pandemic. Do you agree with that basic assessment? Stacey, to you first.
That's right. All of these companies have taken advantage of this moment to expand their market power. And in the case of small businesses, when the world has gone online, increasingly they have no way to reach people except through these powerful gatekeepers. So it has absolutely enhanced their power, and it's made this investigation all the more urgent.
Carl, a quick final thought from you.
Yeah, I think all online businesses have succeeded. You and I are speaking right now through Skype. We use Zoom, neither of which are owned by Apple, Google, Facebook, or Amazon. So you've seen an increase in the use of all technology. Whether Apple, Facebook, Google, and Amazon get bigger, yeah, that may be true, but so is all their competitors at the same time.
Well, look, there we have to leave it. Carl Szabo and Stacey Mitchell, thanks so much.